Welcome to another ABC University training session. In this training session, we're going to cover the brake components and maintenance procedures. During this session, we will give you an overview of the brake system and components, pneumatic flow of an air brake system, and inspection of the brake pads and rotors. Before we get started, let's go over some safety. All CDL requirements for air brake vehicles remain consistent with the induction of air disc brakes. You must perform a parking brake check, test air leakage rate, a static check, test air brake system for leaks, test low pressure warning alarm and or signal, check that the spring brakes come on automatically, check rate of air pressure buildup, and inspect your service brakes. Never exceed manufacturer's recommended air pressure. Never remove a device or pipe plug unless you are certain pressure has been depleted from the system. Never use compressed air or dry brushings to clean brake parts or assemblies. Never take any risks with spring brake chambers. In this slide, we show you the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard 121 is the minimum standard for the stopping distance of a commercial vehicle. The chart below shows you the current stopping distance requirements for medium and heavy duty vehicles. In this slide, we show you a basic cutaway of your disc brake system. Now let's go over the benefits of disc brakes. You have a reduced number of part numbers equals less parts to stock. Same components equal easier to work on. Same rotors all the way around. Same pads from front and rear. Same caliper kits left and right for the front and rear. Available in a complete loaded caliper for left hand or right hand for quicker replacements. And you can replace brake pads without removing the caliper. Air disc brakes, or ADB, are floating calipers, pneumatic disc brakes for use as the foundation braking on all axles of heavy commercial vehicles and trailers. Air disc brakes are easier to service than traditional S-cam brakes. Air disc brakes are available in models with or without spring brakes. The function of ADB is to convert the air pressure applied when the driver applies the brakes into braking force against the rotor on the vehicle wheel. This is done by the application of air from the foot brake or relay valve entering the brake chamber, causing the plate to move the push rods outward. The push rods exert force on the lever, and this force is transferred and multiplied as it turns around the eccentric bearing. The bearing and the connected actuating beam move outward, overcoming the force of the two return springs. The force is then transferred to the two threaded tube tappets and finally to the inner and outer brake pad. Disc brakes convert air pressure into braking force. Internal automatic brake adjustment allows the brakes to always be in a state of optimum adjustment. Straight, stable stops due to minimized brake force variations between the brakes. In this slide, this is a basic air brake system. In this slide, we're going to show you how a general system actually gets pressurized with the air. Let's go over your air disc brakes wear indicator. Visual inspection of the wear indicator. Inspect the notch in the caliper and carrier. If they line up, it is time to remove the wheel for further inspection. Note the pictures below. Next, we'll go over pad inspection. The thickness of the pad must be checked regularly dependent on the usage of the vehicle. The pad should be checked corresponding to any legal requirements that may apply. If a wear indicator has not been fitted or it is not connected, this should be done at least every 3 months. If friction material is less than 2 millimeters, the pad must be replaced. Major damage on the surface of the pad is not permitted. Next, we'll go over your air disc brakes pad replacement. Easy replacement brake pads, no need to remove the caliper or the rotor, and recommend to replace in axle sets. It's never a good idea just to replace one side. Release or cage the brakes and support the vehicle with proper jack stands, and chock all wheels that remain on the ground. Prior to pad removal, pull off the adjuster cap 37 using the tab, taking care to keep the shear adapter 61 in position on the adjuster 23. Using a box-end wrench or socket, fully wind back the tappet and boot assemblies by rotating the shear adapter in a counterclockwise direction. Note, it is not recommended to use any open-ended wrench as this may cause damage to the adapter. Next, remove the clip number 26 and washer number 45. Depress the pad retainer number 11 and remove the pad retainer pin number 44. Discard these 4 items. Replacements are included in the service kit, part number BW802078. To remove the outer brake pad, slide the caliper fully to the outboard position first. To remove the inner pad, slide the caliper to the inboard side. While you have the pads removed, perform a brake rotor inspection. Now we'll go over disc inspection. Measure thickness at the thinnest point. Avoid measuring near the edge of the disc as a burr may be present. Using the picture or diagram to the right, A would equal disc thickness. A new conditioned disc would equal 45 millimeters. A worn conditioned disc would be 37 millimeters. At 37 millimeters, the disc must be replaced. C equals overall thickness of pad, 30 millimeters, new condition. D equals backplate, 9 millimeters with an SN6 and SN7 brake pad. Backplate for an SK7 and NA7 would be 7 millimeters. E equals minimum thickness of friction material, 2 millimeters. With a 9 millimeter backplate, F would equal 11 millimeters. With a 7 millimeter backplate, F would equal 9 millimeters. If these minimum allowed thicknesses are reached, replacement of the pad is necessary. If the disc dimension is less than 39 millimeters, it is recommended that the disc should be renewed together with the pads. Next, we'll go over some of your components of the ABS system. The picture to your far left is for your ECU. To the right is your pulse modulation valve. To the bottom, to the left, you have your ABS valve, and next to that, you have a picture of your wheel speed sensor. Next, we'll go over your foot brake maintenance. Now, let's go ahead and break down your foot brake pedal. Number 1 being the treadle. Number 2, your hinge pin with return spring. Number 3, your plunger dust boot. Number 4 is your mounting plate. Number 5 is your plunger. And number 6 is your treadle roller. First, remove the accumulated dirt, dust, gravel, and grease from the heel of the treadle. Number 1. Plunger, number 5, plunger dust boot, number 3, and the mounting plate, number 4. Next, check the plunger rubber dust boot, number 3, for damage. Change if necessary. Step 3. Check treadle, number 1, with the mounting plate, number 4, for damage, wear, and corrosion. Change if necessary. Step 4. Apply 2 to 4 drops of oil between plunger 5 and mounting plate number 4. Step 5. Lubricate treadle roller number 6, treadle roller pin, and hinge pin with a thin oil. Caution: do not use too much oil when performing the foot brake maintenance. Next, we'll talk about inspecting the brake chambers on the front axle. Precondition: maximum pressure 115 to 130 psi in the air tanks before performing this inspection. Step 1. Clean the outside of the brake chamber and look for visible damage. Step 2. Brush soapy water to vent hole number 2 and clamping ring number 1, shown in the picture to the right. Watch for bubbles while an assistant applies the brakes. No leakage whatsoever should be noticeable at the vent hole. On the clamping ring, only a little foam should be formed. If the chamber is damaged or leaking, remove for further inspection and repair or replace as needed. Inspecting your brake chambers on the drive axle. Make sure you have a maximum pressure of 115 to 130 psi in the air tanks. Wheels are chocked. 1. Clean the outside of the brake chamber and look for the visible damage. Step 2. Brush soapy water to vent hole number 3 and clamping ring number 2, as shown in the picture to the right. Watch for bubbles while an assistant applies the brakes. No leakage whatsoever should be noticed at the vent holes. On the clamping ring, only a little foam should be formed. Step 4. Release the park brake. Brush soapy water around the emergency release bolt number 1, there where it sticks through the chamber wall. Look for soap bubbles. Only a little foam is allowed to show. If the chamber is damaged or leaking, remove it for further inspection and repair or replace as necessary. Inspecting the brake chambers on the trailing axles. Again, ensure you have maximum pressure, 115 to 130 psi in the air tanks. Clean the outside of the brake chamber and look for visible damage. Apply soapy water to vent hole number 2 and the clamping ring number 1. Watch for bubbles while an assistant applies the brakes. No leakage whatsoever should be noticed at the vent hole. On the clamping ring, only a little foam is allowed to show. If the chamber is damaged or leaking, remove it for further inspection and repair. Next, we'll go over inspecting the quick release valve of the front wheel brakes and the quick release double check valve for the park brakes. The pictures to the right, on top is the quick release valve of the front wheel brakes, and the picture below is the quick release double check valve of the park brake. Before you begin, ensure you have maximum pressure, 115 to 130 psi in the air tanks. Step 1. Temporarily remove the muffler of the valve if present. Step 2. Check the exhaust opening, number 1, and brush soapy water on it. Watch for bubbles while an assistant fully applies the brakes. Step 3. Check whether the valve exhausts quickly and without hesitation when the pedal is released. If the valve leaks or fails to exhaust, properly remove it for repair. Next, we will do an inspection of the check relay valve of the trailing axle brake and the drive axle service brake. Ensure maximum pressure of 115 to 130 psi is in the air tanks. Step 1. Temporarily remove the muffler of the valve if present. Step 2. Clean the exhaust opening, number 1, and the picture shown to the right. The one on top is your check relay valve of the trailing axle. The one on the bottom is your drive axle service brake. Once you've cleaned the opening, number 1, brush soapy water on it. Watch for bubbles while the assistant fully applies the brakes. Check whether the valve exhausts quickly and without hesitation when the pedal is released. If the valve leaks or fails to exhaust, properly remove it for repair. In summary, we went over the ADB, or your air disc brake system. We learned how to measure brake pad and disc thickness. We inspected the valves and brake chambers. And we went over the maintenance of the foot brake pedal. And this is going to conclude our training. For questions regarding this webcast, please contact ABC's Technical Service Department at 877-427-7278. Listen for the prompts for Coach Technical Support and select the appropriate option. Support is available at this number 24/7.